So the Shots have had their most tumultuous week since we started the podcast. 72 episodes under the tenure of Tommy Widdrington. This is the first one without him. He's now at Eastbourne Borough. A bizarre week, an up and down week, and we're going to try and make sense of it in a podcast this evening. I guess we can start with the timeline of events that have occurred since we last recorded, really, because we recorded on Monday evening. The podcast went out at about 10 o'clock that night, and then by 8 o'clock in the morning, we knew news was coming. So this was 14th of October. Tommy Widdrington resigns as Aldershot manager. That's it. A blanket statement. Hugo Langton and Alan Dowson will be leading the team. 16th of October, Tommy Widdrington signs for Eastbourne Borough. He's got a video interview that's straight out. So that's 2 days later. Hugo Langton resigns from Aldershot on the 16th of October. We're then told Alan Dowson will lead the team for the foreseeable future. 17th of October, Shahid Azim video update. So we got some more news, some more. I mean, because the rumor mill in between all these days has been flying. Jed Mearholes, it was part of these rumours that were swirling. He was recalled officially by Bristol City. And then we get probably the best news of the week. Will Armitage resigns, not resigns. Don't no more resigning on loan for 3 months, and Kieran Gilligan comes to us until the end of the season. And then the 18th of October, in typical Aldershot fashion, we lose 2-1 at home to Tamworth, while Eastbourne get their first win of the season with a 1-0 win away at Maidenhead via a Geordie van Stappershoorn mistake. So where to begin? I'm just going to ask you, Ian. Sum up your thoughts, I guess, on the entire week, but mainly, I suppose, on Tommy Widdrington's resignation.
Much like Tommy's tenure, I think it's been a roller coaster of emotions. And what Tommy used to say about think about how you made me feel has very much come into play. So initially on the Tuesday, you're like, oh, that's disappointing. You think about all the particular good memories, the things that went well, Swindon, West Brom, Stockport, Tillage, Stokes, Barrett, Wembley, everything like that. The excitement of that first full season where we looked like we might get in the playoffs. And then obviously the other things that have been not so good, but equally fun in their own special way of shipping 5, 6, 7 goals on a fairly regular basis. And then just thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? Where's he going to end up? And then the speculation. So the Hartlepool was mooted initially because, the Northeast connection, etc. And then there's mentions of Eastbourne. You think, no, surely not. And sure enough, it's Eastbourne. And you think, my word, like that is a real bummer. And I'm sort of more towards annoyance at the club that we somehow managed to mess up the summer, basically, that nothing was done in my mind after Wembley to try and kick on and become sustainable. We've had issues this season with Tommy. The concerns about the defence and that stubbornness have definitely been a problem. But I wanted to have a future with Tommy rather than without. And then obviously since then, Dowson with Henry for the foreseeable future, I'm actually, think, okay, why not? Let's try and make the best of this. So long answer, but yeah, a lot to mention.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, trying to summarize the last week and all the different emotions I feel, because there were a real mixture for me. I mean, I just remember feeling really sad for the first 2 days. I was like irrationally like devastated almost but it mainly is those memories that are kind of flooding back. It's like, I associate him with those memories, so it's like, well, he's going now. It's like, I mean, obviously they still exist, and I'm still going to dine on them forever and the rest of my life supporting Aldershot. But you just wanted, I don't know, it felt like a fairy tale that didn't get its like. Obviously, it got its fairy tale ending, and then we get a 2 year contract extension. You're thinking, well, we're going to have another more memories like that. And there's not to say that we can't again, but there certainly was more
Yeah, it
chance of it
feels
happening.
a lot less likely, doesn't it, that we're going to go back to a sort of maybe more mediocre existence, perhaps, that it's just going to be, yeah, well, games like Tamworth that we saw on Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it's also the contrast of what came before and the kind of what we'd seen before the Mosley and McNeely years and I suppose even the Searle years. That does
Oh,
seem a
yeah,
world away
it
now.
was just an absolute huge upgrade on those three. Um, that, yeah, Tommy made, or we experienced things we just didn't think were going to be possible.
Yeah. But the one thing he will be experiencing, I think he may be the first man to swap Aldershot for Eastbourne since I did back in 2013 to go to university there. I don't know if anyone listening has also swapped Aldershot for Eastbourne, but I'm going for that. That's my only claim to fame. Um, but in fairness, I was only there for 3 years and I came back, so maybe it'll be, give it 3 years. That's what I'm saying. CJ, I'll come to you. Your summary on the week just gone.
Well, we went from the highs of beating Dorking to drawing Western to the gaffer leaving. So in the space of 3 days, it was the wildest experience I think I've ever seen. It it was weird. I felt more gutted about this than when Waddock left because the Waddock, like that second period of Waddock, like it sort of had its moment and sort of died like slowly. Where with this, it still felt like there was legs. It still felt like in the next few months there was going to be a moment. Will Nightingale coming back, little things like that. It was just going to spur and kick on. Where and it just came out the blue. With Waddock, you could sort of see it coming. Where with this, it was just like it literally came out of nowhere. And then I think the other thing you forgot to mention as well is all the Glenn Tamplin rumours. I think that's the one thing you forgot to mention in that summary that the wizard might be might be appearing. The Romford wizard might turn up. But yeah,
It's an
so
absolute wind up. It's not even a rumor, is it? That's someone being silly, surely.
the last time I heard, I think he's on the run. So I'd like to think so. The police station up the road that he isn't just cruising around Aldershot. But yeah, so yeah, I devastated with the news of Tommy. I absolutely loved the bloke. I thought he was fantastic. I think you can see just how Dowson reacted, how the players have reacted. You can see it brewing after the FA Trophy final when the players are singing on the bus and stuff like that. And we all know the video and stuff like that. So you could feel it brewing behind the scenes. And then when Jack Barham left, you just felt like it was inevitable. Really, at some point this was going to spill over in some way. You just hoped it wouldn't. And then we had, I like to think we had a pretty good summer in terms of what we signed. Obviously, unfortunately, it hasn't worked out the way we all hoped it would. With obviously signings and stuff, Matt Penny, Will Nightingale getting injured early doors, Josh Brooking getting injured early doors. That's probably our back three, like for the season. So that's straight away through Tommy under the bus. And then from there, we've been sort of clamoring to put a squad together. It'll be interesting to see. I thought it would have happened sooner. Players leaving and going straight to Eastbourne. I don't think it will be long. I think we'll see in the next month or so a lot of movement, especially and it was just in Tommy fashion that he leaves, wins 1-0. The one thing he struggled to do in his whole tenure at Aldershot was keep a clean sheet and score one goal. And then obviously last night we lose to Southampton under 21s and all the other night, and they lose 3-0. So it's good to see that he sorted his defence out straight away. Um, But yeah, I'm generally gutted. Like we spoke about Wembley. Obviously, I was unlucky not to go because I moved out to New Zealand. But we talk about Swindon. I was luckily there for that. West Brom away. Like these moments, like for us, are fantastic. Like all we've ever dreamed about is going to Wembley. Like we were unfortunate in 2004 not to go to Wembley with the playoff final with Terry Brown. We end up at Stoke of all places. We didn't even get the Millennium Stadium. So you think like all the things that's happened, and then obviously the Shahid interview, whether that fills me with confidence, I don't know. But we're looking at what about 2 million, give or take, to sort of take over the club. I know everyone's saying three, but all he said was if you can take the 1.6 over with the debt, the club's yours pretty much. So and then obviously all the excitement around everyone, including myself, tweeting Justin Rose to see if he can put a consortium together. I think that's obviously the dream scenario, but again, we're wishing for miracles at this point. There's too much behind the scenes. I've always said this: Aldershot isn't a glamorous proposition for anyone to come in. We don't own our ground. The town's a bit derelict. It's I know they're putting a bit of investment in, but that makes a big difference. The only link we've really got is the closest to London and the direct link there. Other than that, what's really exciting about the ground? I saw a YouTuber the other day doing a tour around Aldershot, and he thought the back of the ground was a bomb shelter, and that was talking about the East Bank because he walked around the back. And he's walking through like the derelict like tennis courts and the basketball courts and stuff like at the back there. So yeah, look, I'd love to think that it's all going to be sunshine and roses, but I generally I think for the next month or two it's going to be batten down the hatches and just hope that we get something out of it, especially with the next run of games. Jesus.
Yeah, that next run is hilarious. I can't remember a run quite like it, to be honest, to play four of the top five in a row, including a team that are scoring goals for fun in the FA, well, in their league in the FA Cup. But they did concede last night. I know we'll get onto that next week before the West Ham game, but they did finally concede at home to Slough. They did, however, score five the other way. So it's, yeah, could be in for a rough time. Yeah, the only other thing I was going to mention was in Tommy's first interview with Eastbourne. He's no, not his first Eastbourne interview. No, yeah, the first Eastbourne interview, he says he made the decision the week before. Um, so that would have been before the Dorking game. And I think in the BBC interview with him, that I've not actually listened to, but I saw something about it. Um, it said that he nearly left the week before before that. I actually can't remember if that was the BBC interview or not. It might have been the same interview. But anyway, it seemed like something was brewing all along, and how much Jed Meerholt is recalling and the ability to get players in a factor in that. We'll possibly never know. The other thing to come out of the Shahid interview was that the lawyers are involved with Tommy's resignation and subsequent. I'm not sure if it's the subsequent signing for Eastbourne, or which part of it will come under that. But those are that's what we've been served this week. And yeah, obviously we mentioned it in the last episode, but another string to Tommy's bow was getting through to the FA Cup first round in each of the years that he was here. So it does feel maybe that was the fairy tale ending. But yeah, as mentioned before, you had a lot of moments along the way that you could have that we will now be able to say, something was a bit off there. The even Josh Barrett post Dorking. I reckon if you looked at that interview and I also looked at his post Wembley interview, there's similarities there. There's the same kind of I don't know if it's what the word is really apathy, but like kind of a what's he supposed to do? Like back him, like get behind him, and whether that backing was forthcoming, like that's a question for Shahid in the future, I suppose.
I mean, Shahid did answer it a little bit in that he said, what, 19, 20% increase to the budget. So they have made more money available, but at the same time, what are our competitors doing, the other teams in the league? What are they increasing their budget by? They potentially, 3/4 of them already had more to play with than we did. How much of that is the sort of national insurance contributions that have gone up in the last year, things like that they don't buy you or bring you in any better players. It's just more wages it's associated with the same players.
Yeah, and you've also got a lot more prize money that we've got in general, which is just tax-free dollar in your bank account that you can use. And I suppose, yeah, we have to offset with the medical bills that he explains, which, yeah, I mean, that has to come into it. The club is not an endless pit of money, no matter who takes over. Like that, a National League club
Yeah.
of any size and stature would take a hit this year if they had the same amount of injuries that we have. And
90k was mentioned, so almost a six-figure sum, and obviously we're not paying players six-figure sums, or I don't believe we are. So yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, definitely. And for, not to cast aspersions, I suppose, but for players that potentially will not get up to the standard to be able to play National League football in the future. I mean, there's some serious injuries that two, three, four of them have got that are going to be costing us a lot, and that I'm very glad we're supporting them. I don't want to see them cast away just because they're costing us money. That's we've signed a contract with them, and football is a mental game where things like this can happen. But yeah, that for the moment we are spending a lot of money on players that can't play for Aldershot Town.
Hi, Will. Well, wow, where do we start? I suppose we have to start with the events of early last week. We did our podcast on the Monday, and little did we know, what was ahead of us. There were some rumours, I think, on the Monday evening that there was almost like a press conference, and some news was going to be launched, and of course it was really big news. Tommy, he hinted in his interviews that something's not quite right there, and I'm not particularly one of those that needs to know the ins and outs of what's gone on, but obviously for Tommy it was the right time to resign, and for whatever it was, he just couldn't see a way forward. Whether or not he got tapped up over the summer, I don't know, but Eastbourne is in his heart. He's managed there before for something like a 5-year period, I think, from 2016. So the fact that they had an availability as well, and obviously offered him a package that was suitable, then it was only going to go one way. And for Tommy, I just want to thank him really for what he has given the club. I know there were people that loved him and people that didn't, but when you look back on it, he's given us so many good memories in a short space of time. I'm just thinking of even Bradford away, which I went up to, and we lost it, but it was still such a great occasion. West Brom, Stockport, all those cup games, Swindon. I mean, there's never going to be another team, surely, that a non-league team that scores 7 goals away against a league team. It's just not going to happen. And of course, then signing Tollage and Stokes was a masterpiece. And again, I know people are going to say for every Tollage you've got a player that it hasn't worked out, but he did. He found those two, and they catapulted us to just outside the playoffs for that season. So some great memories. Obviously, we haven't even talked about the trophy, which I've been waiting 50 years for that moment. So for that moment, probably in itself, and that day and the celebrations afterwards, then I thank Tommy from the bottom of my heart. Hugo followed quickly on, and again that was a pretty obvious one. I think I've spoken to Hugo quite a few times, doing after match reports and in interviews and things, and genuinely Hugo is such a nice guy and has a really good and deep understanding of the game, and again would support the players 100%. I can see why him and Tommy work so well, so it really wasn't a surprise that Hugo was going to go. And then of course we had the announcement of Douse and JMO taking interim charge. Now I've known Douse for about 30 years. I used to follow his playing career. He was a really good left back with Walton and Hersham back in the 90s, and he eventually went on to manage Walton and Hersham, and the Swans fans there absolutely loved him for his commitment, his drive, his determination, heart on the sleeve. He would run through brick walls, and those are the qualities which I think he will bring to the role. And I think although the fans have sort of got this sort of woking thing in the back of their minds, I don't think it's going to take too much from Douse to get them on his side. And already from the couple of interviews he's given, I think he's come across really well, honest, caring. The players will run through brick walls for him. And I think when we see his passion and commitment again on the touchline, I think he's going to have a lot of followers very quickly. And that will obviously be further enhanced if there's some good results. But the other thing as well is that he's not afraid to try the kids. And I think the performance against Southampton, where he put his trust in some of the kids, was a really good thing to see as well. So I'm quite happy to give him 2 or 3 months actually to really get his feet under the table, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he stays until the end of the season. So with regard to the games, well, I'm not going to talk too much about the Tamworth game. I wasn't able to either watch it or be there, so I'll leave that to the other guys. But moving forward, we've got Scunthorpe this Saturday away from home. It's going to be a tricky game, but I've got a strange feeling about Scunthorpe. I just think that there's always a surprise result, isn't there, in the National League each weekend, and I'm just wondering whether it is going to be us. I think the players would have got a huge amount of confidence from having a week with Douse, and I'm just wondering whether it's us that produces that surprise. Scunthorpe will be really confident, perhaps too confident, and so I'm just wondering whether things go our way early on and we get in front. It may well just be the thing we need. Just with regard to a couple of the signings that have come in, Will Armitage, great signing. We know all about Will. We know what he brings, defensive solidity, so he's only going to be a good move. And I really like the look of Kieran Gilligan in the middle of midfield. He looks like a really good option. Vision, can pass the ball, energy. There was a little bit of a doubt over his game time, as he did suffer quite a large, serious injury. And I guess that's why he's come from Burton to be with us, to get some of that game time. But I think he's going to be a valuable addition, especially as we're not sure how long Tetek is out for at the moment. So, I'm really confident for Saturday, and I'll be up there as usual, and really looking forward to that one.
Hi, Will. So how do we make sense of the past week? Well, statistically, Tommy Widdrington has been our most successful of the 8 managers we've had since Aldershot fell out of the Football League. He oversaw 133 games, won 53 of them, which is a 40% win rate and an average of 1.44 points per game. And that actually edges him out over Gary Waddock's second spell between 2016 and 2019, when Waddock managed more games, 152, but finished with a 37% win rate and 1.4 points per game. And fittingly, Widdrington's departure was as fiery as his arrival. Remember, he resigned from King's Lynn under a bit of a cloud. The club said that they hadn't received an official approach from us, and there was some acrimony as a result. He left them unhappy, but at the time we didn't really stop to think about it, as he came in and helped us avoid relegation. And having done that necessary thing, he then turned to what seemed like a plan for the future. He quickly brought in some players that would become familiar faces with Aldershot supporters: Josh Barrett, Theo Widdrington, Cameron Hargreaves, and Aaron Jones, all of them from Kings Lynn. His links, forged through an earlier connection at Bristol Rovers, also helped bring in some players like Ryan Jones and Dan Ellison. His recruitment team clearly had an eye for value, what you might call a bit of a moneyball approach. We had Josh Stokes, who came from further down the pyramid, and also Laurent Tollage, who arrives from Brighton and Hove Albion, both of them in 2023-24, and both of them were instant hits. Then last summer we had James Henry joining us, and he was impressive for his stats and efficiency. And Cameron Hargreaves grew into a real leader in midfield, and he was my personal pick for player of the season. The best part about Widdrington's teams was how they worked together. They chased everything down and refused to give up. Sometimes too much. A bit naive early on, not always managing the game when they were ahead. And yes, the defence was often leaky, which meant that we were usually having to score 2 or 3 to win just 1. But it was never dull. We were top scorers in the league early in both of his full seasons, and then the form dropped off. In his first campaign, we faded out of the playoff race towards the end of the season. And then last year in 24-25, it was a roller coaster, flirting with the playoffs one week, worrying about relegation the next. It was chaotic, but it was never boring. The real highlights, though, came in the Cups. Having failed to reach the FA Cup first round for 5 straight years, Widdrington took us to the third round against West Brom in 2024-25, and then to Bradford City in the first round the year after. But the defining moment was the FA Trophy run, particularly the semi-final win over Woking and that famous day at Wembley in May of 25. We were never really troubled once we got ahead against Spennymoor, and to see over 20,000 Aldershot supporters celebrating our first ever trip to Wembley and a win, that's the image I think people will eventually remember him by. Of course, his departure raises questions about where the club goes from here. His appointment back in April 2023 was not a short-term rescue job. He came in with a clear idea of how he wanted us to play, open attacking football that was fun to watch. Sometimes too open maybe, but a refreshing change from the door stuff that we'd been dealing with over the previous few years. Financially, the club remains on a knife edge. The latest company's house filings show that we're surviving, but not much more. The recent cup runs have helped limit losses, but as Julian and Ian have pointed out in the WhatsApp chats that we have, the sell-on from Tollage wasn't much, and the gate revenue from the West Brom game still seems to be tied up somewhere. We needed those cup runs just to keep things steady, and we haven't really built on the Wembley success to boost home attendances, which is where most of our income still comes from. Now, the chairman's interview after Widdrington's exit last week hinted at where we are financially. He talked about directors digging into their own pockets, but the reality is that we don't have Hollywood owners, private equity backers, or a petrostate behind us like some clubs further up the pyramid. It sounds like he's open to outside investment, but until that happens, we have to work with what we've got. So am I worried about the future? Yes and no. Yes, because Widdrington gave us structure, ambition, and results we hadn't seen in years. But also no, because his approach showed what can be done with good scouting, contacts, and a clear vision. We were spoiled with players like Stokes and Tollage, both exceptional finds. Maybe expectations went a bit too high because of them. But it's still early in the season, only a third of the way through. Whoever comes in next has to do it on a shoestring, stay patient and stick with the project rather than jumping ship for a bigger budget elsewhere. If we can unearth another couple of gems like Stoke and Tollage, then maybe we can build something, either under the current leadership or make ourselves a more attractive proposition for new investors. It's been a turbulent week, but Aldershot's story has always been about resilience. We've done it before and we'll do it again.
Well, they say that a week is a long time in football, but wow, these last 8 days have felt like an absolute lifetime. It's been a whirlwind, a real whirlwind since we all read the news about Tommy's resignation 8 days ago now. I think we were all on a high post Dorking Wanderers. Fantastic FA Cup win, battling performance, obviously with our depleted squad getting through to the first round, which I think was really important for momentum of this team. And I was starting to think, when we get a few players back, we can, start looking up the table, and everything was looking a little bit rosier than it was a few days before. But then crashing back down to earth with a huge announcement, it totally shocked me, if I'm honest. Obviously, when the statement first came out, there was a lot of speculation across social media about what was next for Tommy. Would he move into a new role? Was it for health reasons? Did he perhaps have a bust up with Shahid? But I think, as most of us probably expected, with any kind of sudden resignation, as often happens, Tommy did land himself in a new role a few days later. I think whether or not he had this new role lined up is probably a conversation for another day, and probably a conversation for lawyers as well. But I think as a club, we probably can't complain about the way it happened, because ultimately it's similar to the way he joined us. So no complaints from me on that side about that. Anyway, at least. But when I read it was Eastbourne Borough, obviously I'd read the rumours that it would be Eastbourne Borough, but overall I was a little bit surprised. I think on the surface, you're seeing a manager leave Aldershot Town, kind of perhaps struggling towards the bottom of the National League, and you're seeing him move to a club struggling towards the bottom of the National League South. And you might scratch your head a little bit at that and think, of where's the logic in that? Trading one scrap for another, but the other is a division below. But I think when you dig a little bit deeper, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Obviously, Tommy did manage Eastbourne Borough for 5 years, so he's familiar with the area and he's familiar with the club, albeit the club has probably changed quite a lot since he was last there. But I think the main thing is their owner, Simon Leslie, it's been well documented, and he's quite publicly said on numerous podcasts and in numerous interviews that he really does back them as a club, both in terms of the infrastructure and in terms of the playing budget. And he has strong ambitions to get them into the Football League. They obviously just missed out on the on promotion to the National League via the league title by a couple of points last season before losing in the playoffs. So I think the plan for this season was very much for them to go again and do one better. However, it's clearly not worked out that way at the start of this season. Some rumours I've read online, and they obviously are all rumours. None of this is fact, but I think it makes quite a lot of sense based on Tommy's decision and other things I've read online. But I've read online that Eastbourne Borough's playing budget is around £500,000 more per year than Aldershot's, at around 1.6 million for Eastbourne, 1.1 million for Aldershot. And I think if you look at it that way, based on some of the comments Tommy has come out with since leaving Aldershot, around a lack of ambition at Aldershot Town, and perhaps a lack of a realistic plan for Aldershot to move up the table and get that promotion to the EFL. I can see why, perhaps if you are a manager in that situation, why you might feel like taking a step back is actually a better option in the long term as well. I think Shahid was right to come out with the interview a few days later as well. There was obviously a lot of negative comments online about the club ownership, or rather club leadership. Are we stagnating and perhaps even going backwards under Shahid? So he was very right to come out with the interview, and I think it was a sensible, measured interview where perhaps he didn't give too much away, but he gave the fans little kind of snippets around some of the challenges he and the other directors face. The key things for me were £90,000 spent already this year on medical bills. Well documented is how many injuries we've had. But also other things like increasing the playing budget by 19% over the last 18 months as well, to kind of show that, he is trying to keep us in line with other teams in the division. But I think the key thing for me is, you can increase the budget by 19%, but if everyone else is increasing their budget by 30% or more, or there are other teams levels below us that have significantly higher budgets, then you're not really increasing the budget at all, are you? Unfortunately, all budgets are just going up and up and up, which I think is a challenge that lower league football and football in general is facing at the moment. I think in terms of the in terms of the challenges around budgets, I think it all makes sense in line with some of the comments we saw during the Wembley period last year, where players like Josh Barrett and Aaron Jones came out with kind of statements around ambition and money available to Tommy. I seem to recall that Josh Barrett gave an interview post Wembley where he said something along the lines of, "Give Tommy some money and we'll become an EFL club." So I can only assume that was a slight dig at Shahid. Moving on from the budget side of things, though, this kind of toxicity online really did move across to the Tamworth game at the weekend, which was obviously not ideal with the last minute loss, and you could sense a real divide in the East Bank where I was stood for the second half. You could sense a real divide between the fans. There was a lot of toxicity, kind of demanding that we want Shahid out. And there was a lot of people who I think were trying to kind of perhaps back the players on the pitch that little bit more with their chant as well. So clearly the fan base is very divided on that. I think it's a very tough situation. Unfortunately, I don't envy Shahid's position, but I do think, the state of the footballing world now is if you don't have the money to invest in the playing squad, or at least significantly, then it's always going to be a challenge to compete at any level you're at, and even at the National League level as well. So unfortunately, I think that's where we are with Shahid. In terms of what we do next, I'm not sure. We've obviously got a huge amount of injuries. Some players coming back, which is good, and I feel for Douse because he's got a real tough run of fixtures coming up with a very imbalanced squad due to the injuries. But the question is, who do we get in at this stage? So I think that's something for the board as a next port of call. But yeah, watch this space. I certainly don't envy those that are making the decisions, and I'm certainly expecting a difficult few weeks ahead, both on and off the pitch.
Yeah, the only other thing I did actually mention, I think it got mentioned in our WhatsApp chat, but the similar feelings, and I know CJ mentioned the feeling of Waddock leaving the second time, but I feel like a similar feeling was when Ini Effiong left mid-season, to a lesser extent, but we knew we needed him so bad that year to give us goals, and when he left kind of mid-season to go to Dagenham, that's the closest feeling I can get. But obviously, I had goals associated with Effiong. I didn't have moments, I guess, and maybe Waddock the first time round. But I can't really remember how I felt when it happened. It felt inevitable, but I don't know. Does anyone remember that? How they felt?
Yeah, I do. Well, because the reason I put it in the WhatsApp chat, because it was something like 16 years to the day, like a couple of days apart from Widdrington leaving. And I think the reason why I realised was because of my Facebook memories. And it was like, why, Gary, why? And obviously at that time, I think from memory, Wycombe were in the relegation zone, but League One. And obviously you can understand that as Wycombe are not a traditional league club, 100 years of history, etc. But they've held their own in the third tier for best part of 30 years. So you could kind of see it, and they do have probably twice our support. So I was gutted, but again, had the good memories of getting promotion and stuff like that. So yeah, this one, recency bias may be kicking in, but I think this does feel worse. Yeah, it just has that same, just a confusion and this maybe could have been avoided.
Yeah, I think also maybe I felt, at least when we're in the Football League and under Waddock, that our trajectory was heading that way. And see, the nature of football, it's quite fickle. Like managers don't have that much loyalty to a club. Obviously, Waddock, I think, definitely has, an affinity with Aldershot for all he's done. But it felt like, well, we'll just get a very good manager in with that group of players, and we'll carry on that same trajectory.
I think
Whereas
as well, it was
now it kind of puts a kind of a question mark on the entire club. Where is the club heading? Are we have we got prosperity in the future? Are we going to be sustainable? Can we be sustainable at this level with the current level of investment, or are we destined to have a patch in the National League South because we can't get more investment to
I think
stay up.
that would be my main concern, that Tommy has done a great job in terms of the revenue generation, that the players that he's found brought to the club, the cup runs, etc. And yeah, whoever we get next, we're going to need to do very well to have anywhere near those gems unearthed, all those cup runs. You know, we could easily be a week or so away from an FA Cup exit. At least we've gone one step further than we did during Searle Molesley, for example. But yeah, that revenue generation, and obviously with Shahid's interview about, you know, the bottomless pit, etc. If you're not getting player sales or cup runs, then there isn't really any other option for Aldershot, is there?
Not really, no. And obviously we've I guess we've discovered in the last 3 years what the I mean, you know, to tie that back to the memories that you get from those things. I know they get money and revenue for the club, but they also, you know, they're kind of once in a lifetime moments and stuff, which obviously the dream scenario is we have a 46 game season where we are the best team in the league. And it's you know, that would be amazing, but that's not our immediate or I think even like 5 year future in the National League because there's too many good teams, but we can't compete financially with those teams. So I guess, yeah, I think tied into the Widdrington resignation is just the general feeling of like what, you know, where next, and I just can't. Whatever way I slice it, even a week on from it, I can't think of many positives. So it's quite.
I think his frustration for me as well is you just know that Eastbourne under him are going to come up at some point. I think the underwriting factor is at some point they're gonna either overtake us and we're gonna go take their place, or they're gonna come up with us or and be up with in the National League. I think that's the worst part is like he signed a long-term deal, whatever that means. But you just know over his tenure, they're either going to be competing in the playoffs in that league because the league below is probably his bread and butter, really. He was pretty much guaranteed to win the league with Kings Lynn before coming to us, and then threw them under the bus, came to us and kept us up in 6 games. So you look at it and you go, there's the high chance that some of this squad will go to Eastbourne. It's just natural order, I think. They followed him here, they'll follow him there. I think at some point there will be a natural order where players start to transition across, whether it's financially or at the end of the season when contracts run out. It's just at this moment in time, can we keep hold of the likes of Barrett? Yes, he signed a new contract. But if we can't, can we get the most amount for him? Because, like, yes, he's a wonderful footballer. Yes, I absolutely adore him. I think he's fantastic. And when he signed a new contract, I was buzzing. But again, like, these players don't last forever. Can we get the most out of them for what they've done to the club, and then move on? Like, you look at when, like we were just talking about, when Waddock left, at least he went higher. At least he went to another club that's higher. But then he took our goalkeeper, he took our midfield, he took players. Natural order, like Nicky Ball, like that was probably just as heartbreaking as Waddock leaving. Do you know what I mean? At the time, because he was our number one for years. So you look at it and you go, like it's just football at the end of the day, and it is what it is. But it's the romanticism of it all that we shared so much with these players. And I think, and I've mentioned it before, is that with Tommy we had the most togetherness I felt with the players in the squad. Like, I know we had the Gallaghers and stuff before of the world where he was doing his roly polies and fist bumps to the crowd, but it felt different this time round. Like Tollard kissing the badge at Woking and stuff like that, like before the deal gets announced, and then like Josh Stokes doing the interview before we left, and then you look at obviously Barrett and the way he is with the supporters, and all the players really, there was just a togetherness there, and then it felt like us against the club at times, like obviously with the chanting on the bus after the FA Trophy and Barrett going against the chairman almost with his interview, and it almost felt like the fans and the players and the management were all together in one, and the club felt like a separate entity almost. And it was a weird dynamic, and I thought about it like the other day because I went back and I listened to the Barrett interview after the FA Trophy final, and he's just like, look, the club need to back him. The club we will be in League Two, just back him. And then all of a sudden we've signed Matt Penny, we've signed Will Nightingale, and I was like, oh my God, maybe they actually are. Maybe they actually are. Like, we had probably the biggest squad this season, and then all of a sudden we have like 15 injuries out of nowhere. Now, like, I know Dow said the other day, and we haven't even spoke about Dow's yet, but I know Dow said the other day that Will's coming back, so I'm assuming that's Nightingale, that in the next couple of weeks he's back. I'm hoping it is, because he was talking about the defence at the time. So with Armitage there, Will Nightingale coming back, Matt Penny's returned, all of a sudden, it's slowly looking like, Tommy, could you have not just waited? Or was this all part of the pipeline? Was it all part of the plan for Tommy? That's the other thing.
I mean, one interesting thing you said there is obviously, or question for everyone is Tommy actually more of a cup manager? Because previously, with his other stints in National South, he didn't get anybody promoted. I know he could have got Kings Lynn promoted when he left. Eastbourne, I think, are chucking a lot of money at progressing up the league, and obviously they'll be looking to get themselves out of what they're in the bottom 4 to 6, I think, at the minute. But is Tommy actually more of a cup manager? And if we do meet Eastbourne, I fear it's going to be in National South rather than them coming up.
Yeah, I mean, you can guarantee it'll be a Tuesday night as well. Eastbourne. We've played them loads of times randomly in the FA Cup, and I'm like, oh, perfect. We maybe might be able to do a little homecoming for me down in Eastbourne. No, Tuesday night. Don't worry. Yeah, that is interesting, and I suppose his record, other than the finishing 8th season, it kind of is it's a very interesting kind of correlation of just very good cup runs. I'm trying to think of the FA Trophy the first time round. How far did we get there?
Stortford.
Oh,
so we
yeah,
got two rounds, and then got absolutely battered.
That was it. Yeah, that's the reason I could put that one out of my mind. Yeah, but again, I suppose that happened in the first season, so we were a bit more like, well, focus on the league, and yeah, that's what happened. Yeah, well, next, I suppose we can talk about Alan Dowson, and we could talk about his first interview and Tamworth. I wasn't there. I was in Rome for the weekend, so I was watching it come through on Flash Scores, which is it's up there. It's definitely the worst way to follow football, because I don't really go on X. So I wish I'd just logged in and done that, actually, because Flash Scores was a nightmare. And I assumed that Aldershot were going to hold on. Didn't want to look at the Flash Scores because, obviously just being on the page would mean that Aldershot were going to lose. I looked 5 minutes later, and we had indeed lost. Ian, I'll come to you first. Yeah, I suppose the other thing to mention was Alan Dowson's kind of first interview, where he basically says relegation, which is the first time we've heard the R word in an interview for about 3 years, despite it lingering over us most of that time. How did you feel about Dowson taking the job for the foreseeable and Tamworth at home on the weekend?
Yeah, Dowson, I'm relatively upbeat about. I think there's a little bit of continuity there, that he's been around since the summer. I looked up his record with Woking, so he had promotion for Woking via the playoffs from National South, 10th in the second or the first full season back at National League level. And then we had a couple of seasons where the season was curtailed. And I think Woking, from memory, put their players on furlough, no relegation. So I think they were 21st, but reality, they weren't trying. And then his final season, he was sacked after a sort of run of 6 games without a win in 16. So I think his record's reasonable. I'd like to see, what he can do with a bit more time. I'm not clamouring to get somebody else now. I think, again, from what we talked about the finances, this is probably the way we're going to end up. So let's support that and make the most of it.
Yeah, I suppose I mean, if you look at the timeline now when Dawson joins as coach, it does look weird, doesn't it? But but also quite lucky to have an incredibly experienced manager just sat on the sidelines waiting in the wings, who seems to get on with Tommy. You know, because obviously when that first got announced, I was like, that's going to be a bit of a weird dynamic on the sideline. Like there's a coach who's got 970 odd games as manager under his belt, just kind of looming over you and giving you little notes about how things are going. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like, I mean, if you were to script it, that it would be Alan Dowson was hired by Shahid to kind of keep an eye on Tommy and report back or something. I'm sure that wasn't the case. I'm sure they're great friends that that he wanted to join him for that. But quite interesting anyway. CJ, I'll come to you. Your thoughts on Alan Dowson leading the team for the foreseeable.
I think it's quite funny what you mentioned then is that was the writing on the wall when Dowson got brought in. You got a manager with 990 plus games under his belt. Why would you bring him in? Unless you are just generally good mates. And Dowson spoke about it in his interview as like, I haven't come here to take Tommy's job. Like it was never the case. He said that straight away. So what was there writing on the wall from in Tommy's perspective? I know a lot of people on the forums and the Facebook page have said that Tommy was tapped up at pre-season, and then all of a sudden Dowson's announced. Like, is there a correlation there? Maybe we're looking into it too much. Am I a conspiracy theorist? Maybe. Should I get my tinfoil hat on and sit in the corner of a dark room? But again, like we talk about Dowson's interview, and everyone keeps talking about the honesty of it all. But again, like you said, the R word. Is there a threat in my mind? Yes. Should we be talking about it in October? Probably not. Like it is a long season. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I don't think Douse is the answer long term. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I don't think he's the answer long term. Has he got his own management team in? Have they looked at getting a coach in for him? Because at the moment it just seems like it's him and JMO doing a lot. Considering JMO's only been coaching probably the best part of maybe 6 months. Is this the answer long term? I'm not sure. Douse will probably need to get his whole management team in if he's going to do that and get experienced coaches around him. I just feel there's it's still up in the air. No one really knows what's going on. I don't know, obviously, what's been said behind the scenes with Douse. Has he been given a set period of time, or is it literally the club are doing management search now and you're literally holding down the fort while we look? The options are quite bleak in terms of what's unavailable but available to us in that sense. So managers who haven't got a job, there's not many top picks. You got Derek Adams. Is Derek Adams a Southern manager? That will he be willing to come to us? There's lots of question marks. I think over the years it has. Other than the Tommy, I feel like the writing on the wall for National League South has been lingering. Is that the direction we go for a couple of years of sustainability where we can sort of meet the level? But then the problem is you look at that league now and you go, you've got Chelmsford struggling, they got a pot of money. You've got Dagenham struggling, they've got a pot of money. You've got Dorking and they're pretty comfortable at that level financially. So
Eastbourne.
and Eastbourne as well. So all of a sudden Maidstone are pretty comfortable. So you look at it and you go, do we want to go down? Because if we go down, it's almost that inevitable that we ain't going to come back up straight away. And all of a sudden, we're going to be that National League South side that sit there all the time. And I think we're the longest reigning National League club at the moment. I don't want to be the longest reigning National League South side because then that trajectory will be the longest serving Southern Prem side at that point. And then and then so on and so forth. So I really hope we keep our status in the National League. We're a much better proposition as a National League club than we are a National League Southside, give or take, because we'd probably be one of the top teams in the league below. But I don't want to be that top team in the league below. I want to be a team that's I'd take mid-table and then pushing on in this league. And with Dowson, like I know he changed the formation last night. I watched the highlights of the game. The defending's still just as interesting. Watching some of the goals, like the Southampton game, I thought, Jesus, like what's going on? Pat Nash probably arguably a mistake for one or two of them, but the defense was a mess still. And but positives are that Matt Penny got minutes. He was back on the pitch, so experience is slowly coming back into the team. Toby Nelson looked good, and some of the young lads were prosperous. If you listen to Douse's interview calling the young players cute, to make it out what you will. I thought that was a bit of an odd comment, but I got the logistics of what he meant, and I think really like it. There is a way we get out of this quite comfortably, and it just needs the right work behind the scenes now to get the right appointment in. And I know it's always the same thing after any manager leaves or gets sacked. It has to be the right appointment. What is the right appointment? But there are plenty of managers out there who just click like we saw with Tommy. Was Tommy the right appointment? I don't know, but it worked out, and it worked out wonderfully for everyone involved for a short period of time. So, like you got Kelvin Davis who left Eastleigh. You got Ben Strevens. I know a lot of these names are probably just like rooting around and stuff like that, and these are probably the likelihood guys that are gonna come in because they're local to the area and they're probably in our price range.
Yes, yeah, that is the next kind of the next steps, I suppose. What is the process? Will that be communicated to us? That there are kind of interviews taking place, or these kind of things. Hopefully, that is communicated with us. Obviously, even during Tommy's tenure, we've not had the greatest communication from the club and the management, I suppose, either. Mainly injuries from that side of it. The club side, obviously, the ongoing ground redevelopment and silence that's generally just kind of perpetuated rumours and absolute rubbish on social media because people don't know. If people don't know, they will speculate. And then as soon as someone speculates, someone says, "Well, I heard someone say this a couple of months ago. Was there any truth in that?" And there probably isn't ever. But if the club don't clarify it, then we don't know.
Well, with Shaheen,
Obviously, they kind of
he obviously mentioned that there's like they've been inundated with um like managerial stuff, and they always will. And this is what people need to understand is that a full-time professional job near London doesn't come around often in football. So whether and the fact that it is full-time, the fact that the pay is probably pretty good. Like I'd hate to guess what Tommy was on, but it would be a comfortable living, like it would be for a yearly salary. I think, like we were saying, we're always going to be inundated with applications and stuff like that. And I think the market at the moment is a very National League market, like we spoke about before. Kelvin Davis, Derek Adams available. Who else did I mention? Ben Strevens. Now they're not overwhelming appointments. Derek Adams would probably be a sensible one if we could manage to get him down. I think that would be the one that I think supporters would lean towards if it's anyone. Um, I know I've spoke about Tim Seals in the past. He's flying at Wimborne and stuff like that. He knows the club. Scotty Davis is another one that's been bashed around a little bit, and we could probably do with a player at the moment as well. So a player manager with Scott Davis's reputation at the club, I'm not sure. I'd love Scotty Davis to come in, but I'm not sure he's the man yet. But he knows how to work at a low budget, and he knows how to get morale going. The supporters at Slough love him. We love him. So, but again, would it be just another Molesley case? Like that's the other thing you got to consider. Is Scotty D ready yet? Because it would go down unbelievably with the crap that like supporters, just the same way that Terry Brown and Molesley did when they came in together. So, but are we in a situation where we need a bit of romanticism, or do we need some pragmatism where, like, with the dooming situation that we're in now, do I think come Christmas we're in a relegation battle? Probably not. I think if the players that come back that we're hoping for, I think we'll be fine. It's just who's leading us at that point. Will it be Douse? Obviously we spoke about they changed formation last night or the other night against Southampton. Um, they went back to a back four. Now, Dow said, was it personnel? A little bit, I think. I think it was a bit of both. I think it was a test of waters with a back four. I saw on X and stuff like that people were happy to see a back four. Look, the defending doesn't change whether it's a back four or a back three. Like, it was just as messy, and it was just like the goals we conceded were just as poor. It really doesn't matter. The formation's irrelevant, as everyone keeps talking about Amarin and stuff like in the Premier League. It is irrelevant. It's what personnel you have on the pitch. If you've got three unbelievable centre backs, like we saw last season, once they got settled with Ellison and Armitage, and who was the other one? Oh, now my head's struggling. Who was the other one? Oh,
Wickham,
Woodhouse.
Woodhouse, of course it was.
Great.
That was, like, again, so you look at it and you go, like, those three settled in together, and it just worked. And then obviously before that we had Harfield and all them lot, not Evans, Harry's and stuff. So it literally is personnel. If you've got the best players, especially in non-league football or any football, if you've got the best players, you've got a better chance of winning the game. If you don't, if you've got less players, like lesser players. So I think the formations are relevant. Whether we play 3-4-3, 3-5-2, 4-4-1, it really doesn't matter. And I've seen a lot of people talk about being more conservative with our approach. Look, we were conservative under Searle and we were rubbish. We were conservative under Mosley and we were poor. Like, Ross McNeely brought a bit of attacking flair for his first few games, and then we were dire. So Tommy coming in and with the attitude similar to Waddock and we're just going to outscore teams was wonderful to see, and it felt good that we might go 2-0 down, but we will win 3-2 at some point. Now it feels like we go 2-0 down and we could lose 5-0. It's just a horrible situation at the moment, and I feel like we need an attacking approach again. We need to keep on the front foot with the players that we have in the squad, but we do need a bit more balance to the team. And I think everyone's ignorant to Tommy, and he was ignorant to it all as well. But he was good at what he did. He was good, and if we had the strongest possible team available, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now, and we'd be probably borderline playoffs. I think if we had everyone a bit fit and available, but we don't. I think that's the only thing that's really let him down this tenure, or this season, sorry.
Nice. So yeah, it remains to be seen who will who will come in potentially if we're gonna get an update on things from the club, and yeah, let's I guess get behind Dowson for now. We'll discuss the Tamworth game, his first game in charge of the shots. I'm not sure if it's called. I suppose it is just being in charge. It's not in temporary charge. He's just not been announced as first team manager, I suppose. So maybe he'll wait for his first team. Will that go towards his 1,000 games? Don't know. Don't know. I
Yeah, it
wouldn't be
would.
counting that.
It
Oh,
would
it's
be
annoying for Dowson.
because he called it was his 955th or something on the Tamworth game, so he's got 5 more to 1,000. So he is counting it, and you would do naturally because he is caretaker manager. Like, if you look on online and stuff, he is classed as caretaker manager.
That's the one. Caretaker charge. Okay, nice. So yeah, the shots lost 2-1 to Tamworth in between the meeting recording. I watched the highlights for the first time because I've only heard what happened to get the indirect free kick and the subsequent goal, and then the miss from Archie Taylor, which I still can't quite get over, and then Tamworth's 97th minute winner. Ian, you were there. You were on the slab, and your view for the last goal was interesting. Yeah, what were your thoughts on the game overall?
I was just, yeah, really, really angry, went home, but I couldn't kind of work out where my anger should be directed. Was it at the team, the officials, the defence? Just utterly bizarre. And I watched the highlights again before joining the call earlier tonight, and my God, it's I do sort of wonder, looking at as well at some of the Tamworth chances where they've missed the easier ones and then scored from some of the opportunities that perhaps they shouldn't have had. Obviously, first goal, the back pass that was or wasn't. On Saturday, my view was, okay, well, that's clearly come off the Tamworth forward. Is the particular law here for back passes that it was based on the intention from my position on the south side of the ground? To me, it looked like Hill was playing it back to Dewhurst. But now I've seen the replay, especially the slowed down one, I'm kind of wondering if actually he was trying to get it across the field to the man that was there. So I can't make my mind up between referee blunder or, Dewhurst mistake in terms of letting the officials make a decision, because he's picked the ball up when he should have just levered it clear. The resulting indirect free kick, I don't know how they've managed to thread that one in. It's further out than you'd imagine. Was it Taylor's thrown himself at the ball, but he's managed to get it just under and rifled into the middle of the net. And I guess that Dewhurst wasn't cited for that, and that's what's meant that just a good shot on target was enough for a goal. And then the winner, last moments of the game, I can count on the replay 7 Aldershot red shirts behind the ball, just 4 Tamworth players, but the one Tamworth player crucially that's unmarked, nobody goes to close him down. They've had ample opportunities, and even if that Tamworth forward could got a shot in, that you'd hope it would be one that could either be blocked or, because of the lack of space or somebody closing him down, it's going to go miles wide, and then the referee's going to blow up immediately after. So, I just don't know what to make of it. But it was, so disappointed on Saturday night, and still am now, really.
Yeah, I can feel I can feel your frustration, and it's probably partly why I didn't want to watch the highlights. I'd kind of read enough, I'd seen enough that I did not want to watch that, and I was proven right. That was thoroughly depressing. Just replaying Archie Taylor's miss in my head again. It's gone so far. It's so he's so well set. He plants his foot, his side foot in it. He's doing everything right, and then he just kicks it so hard. He's kicked it so hard and so high. It's gone over the East Bank. I don't think I've seen a shot go over the East Bank for quite a while. So yeah, nightmare. A nightmare start. CJ, how did you see it?
Yeah, it was so frustrating because I felt, especially first half, we were stringing passes together and we were linking up the game really well. And I thought we were playing all right, and I was like, oh, I'm reasonably optimistic about this. And then we obviously went 1-0 up, and it was a good goal. And then it all just went downhill. Like, it just went drastically downhill. Like, second half, I thought we were poor. I think James Henry, I think he assessed it pretty well, that we, for the first like half an hour or so, we were okay. Yes, they were creating chances, and Tamworth probably could have been 2-0 up in the first 15-20, but they weren't. And then we took the lead through a really good goal. Taylor's ball through to Barrett. Barrett puts it straight across into the danger zone, really, and then obviously it gets tapped in. And I was actually buzzing. Like, obviously, it's stupid o'clock in the morning when I'm watching it and stuff like that, and I'm getting up for it. But I was buzzing. I almost screamed down, because I was like, "This is what we need. This is what we need. We needed this." And there just felt like optimism around the ground. Like there was a little bit of buzz, so you could feel it through the TVs and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, that nonsense takes place. Hayden Hollis slams it past Dewhurst, and then you're just before half time. You're like, oh. And then it comes half time. You're like, right, let's perk up a bit. Let's get, and we just never really got going in the second half. And it almost felt inevitable that something was going to take place. And then obviously, like Ian said, with the goal at the end, there's so many people there, and like it could have been stopped at source in a wide area. The ball's been put across to a bloke who's literally free 20 yards out, and he takes a touch, and then I think it's Jackson maybe who flies out to him, but again it was just sluggish. It was too slow. Like the back line are there watching the bloke on the edge of the box, like the midfielder there watching him, and no one really reacted in that sense. On a positive note, I thought Armitage played all right, and I think Gilligan played pretty well. Gilligan linked up the game pretty well. He's stringing passes, getting combative. He looked a bit lightweight for the National League. I'm not sure how that's going to fit. Is he any better than what we currently got? I'm not sure. His passing range was pretty good. Some of the balls he was putting around the pitch, but again, it's a body in the door, and he's good enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, he doesn't bring the group down. I think that's all you can ask for in situations that we're in at the moment. And like, I don't see what the answer is going forwards. Like, Kwame's good, Gandor's okay. Is he the answer? No. He's a National League South striker. He really is, and it hurts me watching him because he just runs around a lot and he works hard and he huffs and he puffs, and it never goes in unless we're playing opposition like Southampton under 21s or someone league below. Yes, Gandor will score you put maybe 5 goals a season, but that's relegation form. That's for a striker. Like, again, Barrett seems to be having a quiet season, yet he's on, I think, like 9 assists or something stupid, goals and assists. So he's still pulling strings. He's still doing the right things. It's just we haven't got a Jack Barham on the end of it to put it in the net. And inevitably, if you've got no one scoring goals, you're always going to be open to the back. And that's what we are at the moment. Like, we drew 3-3 with Southampton, and then 21s, and then lose on penalties. With half the, well, the way that they reported it was like it was a youth squad, but you look at it and you go, Tristan Abrahams and Gandor up front, and then you go, Matt Penny was in the squad, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, there's a few senior players in there, and then around it was the youth squad. So look, I'm still optimistic. I think we'll be fine. We won't get relegated. I hope. And hopefully in the next month or two, the manager situation sorted, whether it's Douse for the rest of the season or a new one's come in, it needs to be sorted before the end of November, really.
I was just going to say the timing of both goals is crucial because, 1-0 up. Yeah, I wouldn't say we're playing amazing, but you are looking to get to half time and go again. And then, just 2 minutes means we're going in at the break. Our heads are gone in terms of we're furious with the referee, the officials, etc. And then from there, and then obviously at the end of the game, it is one of those things. But we have to see the game out better. And obviously, I'm looking forward to Guy's latest table of when we conceded the goals, etc. Because I'd be very curious to see where goals in first half injury time and obviously injury time at the end of the game feature, because it feels a bit too frequent for me.
Yes, it does. And whether Dowson or whoever comes in is able to change that, or see if we see a different trend of when we concede. I suppose I think last time the worst one was after half time, that first 15 of the second half. But to concede at the end of both halves is about as bad as it can go. Especially when you're playing at home, those goals should be slightly less chance of going in because you're the ones that are at home. You should have control of the game. But this one got away, and as we've kind of alluded to, probably it feels like for the last like 3 weeks, like this big ominous cloud is slowly approaching Aldershot town. It's been cast over us because we have a run of games that if you looked at them at the start of the season, you would have said Rochdale and Forest Green will be tough. And Scunthorpe and Boreham Wood, listen, they had a good season. They've come up, but they're probably going to be mid-table or lower as they get used to this league. However, they are in the top five, and that is what comes up next.
I
It's
just
Scunthorpe
thinking though,
away.
yeah, with also the teams we've got to come, it's also the feeling now that the league table's settled down, that the fixtures we've had, we haven't really made the most of. Looking at where
So
people,
true.
that we lost to Altrincham, I think they're bottom four, bottom five. Truro
Solihull,
struggling, we didn't
Morecambe's.
win. Yeah, that's just as much of a concern. I know we can't change these, but that to some extent is worse than what we've got to come, at least with what's to come. Yes, it might be a daunting prospect in terms of league position, but at least we can influence those games. Hopefully, we can improve and play well, get some points. But yeah, my word, we've made it hard for ourselves.
Absolutely, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if we can. Well, yeah, as we approach like the midpoint and start playing teams again, like trying to replicate the results against the bad teams, and also we've got to pick up some points from some other teams. We can't just pick them up from Solihull and Morecambe both times, especially with Morecambe being uh, getting a bit better. And I think they won 4-0 last night away at Boston. Which is another random result in the National League. Um, yeah, I guess we'll look ahead to Scunthorpe. CJ, your thoughts on that game at the weekend?
I think we just need a performance. I think we just need to get a good performance out. Whether the results goes our way or not, we need to see a positive performance. We need to see the players react and bounce back. I think that's the biggest thing now is that the supporters will get behind the team because they know the situation we're in. We just need a positive performance where like the Tamworth, if we came away from Tamworth 1-1, we'd all be going, look, that's a good start. For the management team, that's a positive. But all of a sudden we've conceded two late goals. And then like, I'm looking at the fixtures now, and I think if we can get at least 4 points, which sounds bleak, but if we can get 4 points out of these next four games or whatever, and then beat Western, I'd take that because then it's Woking on the 23rd of November. And if the players can't get up for that, then I think Douse will be the most up for that as well. If he's still in the role, I think he'll be. He knows how much that means for both clubs, having been on the other side. So I I think if we can get ourselves to Woking, and then we have York, Altrincham, Boston, Sutton, Wealdstone, and then Solihull. So you look at it and you go, can we pick up at least 3 or 4 points out of the next four, beat Western in the FA Cup, and then get to Woking? And then usually that's when our season kicks in. Ideally, it's come a bit earlier this year. So it's kind of worked out fairly well for us in that sense that of all games to get up for, that's the one. So if we can just like gain enough points to get to Woking, and then from Woking, hopefully the trajectory's there. Like I said earlier, like Dow said that Will Nightingale is probably a week or two away. So by the end of this run, where we're looking at Forest Green, there they look like they're a bit hit and miss at times. And then obviously Rochdale, they're doing well. But the other thing as well, the Aldershot way is we struggle against poor teams and do well against good teams. So hopefully that's still the mantra going into this run because it needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, it seemed to be the Widdrington way, so it'll be interesting to see if it's just the players being motivated way, or if it is that's the end of it now. We will just collapse into four defeats in a row. But I like your positive spin on it. I like the platform that you set of 4 points, and then we'll go and beat Woking. The idea of Dalston on that touchline for that Woking game is quite an interesting prospect. That's not crossed my mind yet. That is, yeah, it's literally 1 month away. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next month. Ian, your thoughts ahead of Scunthorpe at the weekend?
Yeah, Scunthorpe going well after coming back up to this level. So, yeah, it's a challenging prospect, but I am hopeful. I'm hoping another few days, they can watch the highlights of Saturday and hopefully work on those particular things. Dowse and Henry having a bit more time to work on it, and then various positives coming out of the under-21 match. So, yeah, I'd just be, again, happy with the performance. I think even if it is a narrow defeat, then, yeah, I'd go along with what CJ's saying, that, a handful of points from the next few would be okay. Yeah, but if we can get a point on Saturday, I'll be delighted.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a point would. Well, a point now, under Widdrington, they seem to be quite few and far between. Like there was quite a big gulf in games where we were not in it, and usually the other way when we were in it. So maybe we are. I mean, I appreciate draws, so let's bring them on. I don't know how CJ you would split your 4 points up. Would you happily take 4 draws, or do you think we need a win plus a draw and 2 defeats? How would you slice it?
I think it's a win and a draw. It's just where that comes.
Yes.
I think it's where it comes from. I look at the Scunthorpe game and I think this is Dowson's first game, because you take away the first week because he didn't get time on the training ground. The player's still affected by the Tommy news. He's still affected by the Tommy news. So you look at it and effectively you go, this is his first game in charge now. Because you take the Southampton game away because it's just what it is. It's a National League Cup. No one really cares. Like the Scunthorpe game now is the big one. And I think that's the one that in his head will be his starting block, because he's had 2 weeks now to with the squad, probably a handful of sessions. So all of a sudden we might start seeing the Dowson way a little bit. And then I think by Forest Green, you're probably going, right, this is what we're going to look like under Douse. Forest Green, Rochdale, you start, and then it all obviously leads into the Woking game. But I'd like to think 4 points out of this next 4 games just sort of eases the ship a bit. If we get pumped by Scunthorpe, it just looks really bleak. Like it really does, and it almost feels inevitable then that Douse is not the man. Unfortunately, whether that's harsh or not, we're in October, the end of October. So by Christmas, the league sort of sets itself. Now, normally we have a good run in after Christmas because it always leads into the Boxing Day game and it always leads into the New Year's game. But we don't have that this year or this season. So it almost, these next month or two, even under Tommy, though, we sort of struggled around this period. So, and then we always sort of rallied the troops. So, but again, I just really hope that we don't get smashed by a few against Scunthorpe, and it's the positive performance, and it just spirals on then. Because I think if we beat Western, the mood will be up. Get a point against Scunthorpe, beat Western, and then all of a sudden we got Borehamwood, Forest Green, Rochdale. And if you can pick up a point out of those three or a couple of points, then all of a sudden it doesn't look as bad. If it gets to the point where the next 5 we lose, then you go, wow. And then Woking will have their tails up because they'll be coming to Aldershot with 5 losses or 6 losses in a, or that'll still be 7, wouldn't it? With Southampton, and it'll be like 7 losses in a row. So then like Woking will have their tails up, we'll be depleted. And where does that leave the squad? Because the squad have to back the manager. So if all of a sudden we're just getting rolled every week, are the players behind the manager then? Are the supporters behind the manager? Then the Zoom out shouts start reoccurring and protests start kicking off, and then all of a sudden the club's in turmoil. It really is a big 5 games, no matter how you look at it.
I suppose one thing, though, is we've often turned up to Woking games in no sort of form at all and managed to pull something out the bag on those occasions, and that would always be help. I think as well that I think the Azim out chants for now aren't going away anytime soon. I think they're sort of here to stay for the time being, for sure.
Yeah, it's something we'll probably have to do a deeper dive into on podcasts coming up, I assume, because there was a lot in that video update, but also not a lot. There's a lot to kind of it was meant to kind of quash a lot of the general rumours that are swirling around, but it also just headed just give us a bit of an update on it, I don't know. There are opportunities for investment or a change of board or these kind of things.
He covered a lot about covering, didn't he? I think that's the best way to put it. Is he covered a lot without covering anything. He said a lot. He broadly spoke about a lot of things. He spoke about like the Wheelstone guy, and then it's like, well, his father passed away. Brilliant. So then surely we give it a few weeks and we get back in touch with him. But then it just like died a death really, and then all of a sudden he pops up at Wheelstone. No one just pops up buying a club. It takes weeks and months.
Yeah.
So
or there was questions in there where it was like some didn't need to be answered, like how do you respond to the fact that you take money out of the club? And that I don't think for a second happens. And I think that was wasting time answering questions like that. And then obviously the interviewer just going, great, that clears that up then, and move on to the next question. It felt a bit unnecessary.
I think the thing that I kind of said it in our chat is that, like, I don't know, a few other people mentioned it, is his arms crossed the whole time and he felt very defensive, and like he didn't need to be that way. Like that was the moment where we go, look, I'm with you guys, I'm just as upset, I'm just as frustrated. And he kind of like held his cards a little bit, and I was just like, Shahid, just show a bit of emotion there. Like this is your moment to sort of build that relationship with us again that's been broken for a period of time. I was like, don't get me wrong, I admire the man. He kept us up. He kept us afloat, but that only lasted so long. Like we're talking like 10 plus years now. Do you know what I mean? Like we got promoted under John McGinty. We done really well. We were flying, and then all of a sudden, it's gone bleak again. And these moments seem to reoccur under this ownership.
Well timed. Thank you, Ian, and thank you, CJ. We'll be back again next week.